Podcast Answer Man, episode number 200.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference. This is GSPN.TV. Join the community.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and this is the 200th episode of this weekly podcast devoted to podcasting. That's right, the podcast that is here to help you on a weekly basis take your show to the next level. It doesn't matter if you're a brand new podcaster just thinking about podcasting, or have been podcasting for years and you still can't talk. This show is for you. Oh, goodness, my friends. I am so excited. I know I say that every week. Well, most every week, I'm pretty sure. Because I am. This is my favorite show to record. It is my favorite topic to talk about. I love podcasting, and I am so excited about the fact this is my 200th episode of Podcast Answer Man. And I think back to when I first started Podcast Answer Man and what my goals were and what my mission for this podcast was. And to know that it didn't take a whole 200 episodes to achieve all that I had ever hoped for and so much more. And if you're wondering what my goals were for Podcast Answer Man, what I had hoped to do with this show, and by the way, the show was launched as a result of my desire to eventually one day start doing podcasting full-time as a career within maybe the next 5 to 10 years. And of course, I think that was just 2.5, maybe 3 years ago that I actually, or no, was it 4 years? It was 4 years ago when I launched this. So within the time frame that I had allotted myself, I achieved my goal of going into podcasting full-time as my career. My desire with this show was to put myself out there as a trusted advisor when it comes to consulting and coaching in the area of podcasting and new media. And this podcast has achieved that for me and has really allowed me to share a lot of valuable information week after week after week. And I can just tell you right now that if you're considering focusing on a new online venture, a new podcast or a new niche out there, podcasting is a great way to add to, let's say you're planning on doing blogging and hope that people will notice you and all of that other stuff. That's going to be very helpful. But man, if you can get behind a microphone and you can be inspired and passionate and genuinely enthusiastic about your particular niche, and you have a lot of valuable information to share, and you can give it freely to people, it's amazing what a podcast can do for you and helping you to build your personal brand. And I'm just delighted to be here. The number of subscribers that are here today, I would have never guessed in a million years that I'd have within this amount of time. And especially when I was going into podcasting, I remember, oh gosh, if you just go back to, I don't even remember what episode it was, but I remember Michael W. Gohagan going on the record and saying podcasting is dead, and I invited him on my show, and we had a pretty civil debate, but it was intense. I disagreed with him in the episode, and he had recommended that, Cliff, you probably are selling yourself short, and I don't know how long you can actually last in this if you're going to call yourself a podcast consultant. I think that that's a really bad idea, that you should call yourself a new media consultant, because people, when they go to hire people, they're going to look for somebody who can help them with YouTube channels and Facebook fan pages and Twitter accounts and all these other things. And they're going to go for somebody like that versus somebody who's just a podcaster. And I disagreed with him back then, and I still disagree with that thought today. I think that you should find your niche. I think you should find your focus, find your truest passion, and go at it with all you have. And when you do that, you become known for that one thing. In fact, I don't want to be known as the video podcast guy. I want to be known as the audio podcast guy. I don't want to be known for the guy who can help you with your Facebook fan page. Do I know how to set those up? Of course I know how to set those up. It's not what I want to be known for. I really have no desire to help people set up a blog unless that blog contains a podcast, an audio podcast. So, I mean, I knew what I wanted, and this is my niche, and this is where I feel most comfortable. It's where I feel like I have the most value to offer because it's what I do day in, day out, every single day of the week. It's the number one thing on my mind all the time is the podcast and what podcasting does. And by the way, it's not just about earning income. It's not about that. Go back, listen to episode number 198, I think, is where I had my wife on, or was it 199 when I had my wife on the show? I think it was 198. Anyway, I had my wife on the show on 198 where we shared the talk that I gave on a cruise where I talked about my true motives for podcasting. So anyway, I say all that to say that I'm very excited about 200 episodes. I hope you don't mind that I spent the first 6 minutes of the show talking about it. If anything else, it's not just me. Yeah, it is a little bit of me just patting myself on the back. I admit that. Maybe it is. But here's the thing. At the same time, I hope it's an encouragement to you. And by you, I'm talking about the podcaster out there that's on your 5th episode or your 6th episode. You know, trust me, it takes time. It does. And there's a lot of work involved in building something that's worthwhile. But keep at it, keep being passionate, keep moving forward. And as far as growing your audience, I've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it 1,000 more. Don't worry about growing your audience. Spend more time focusing on building stronger, deeper relationships with the people that are already listening to your show. I don't care if you've only got 5 people subscribed to your show. Get a really good, close relationships with those 5 people. And those people will eventually start talking. And of course, it all comes down to motives and stuff like that. But hey, you know what? We've got all kinds of things to talk about in the show. So instead of talking about me for the rest of the show, I'm going to tell you what we've got here. I am going to tell you in a few moments. I'm going to play an interview that will uncover the reason why I have unsubscribed from every single podcast that I've ever listened to in iTunes. That's right. I've completely gone in and unsubscribed from all podcasts in iTunes. So hopefully you caught that little pause there. So we're going to talk about that. We've got a lot of other things. We're going to talk about Blog Talk Radio, Podbean, what to do if you can't, when you didn't follow my advice, or maybe you're just now finding out about Podcast Answer Man and you didn't get to hear my advice. What do you do when you've already started out on one of those services and now you want to go on a different route? We're going to get Vince, who's going to ask about how do you get audio going out the auxiliary output if you're hooked up to Skype. Video product questions from Chef Tony. I'm going to give you a little update about my A to Z course that's going on currently and what's going on for May. The freebie guy calls in and asks me about Adobe Audition versus Sound Booth, and Jim Beagley wants to know what metadata he should include in his MP3 tags. So as you can see, there's a lot of things to cover here today, and we're going to get things started off with a call from Lane, who's going to share her experience with Blog Talk Radio. Take it away, Lane.
Hey, Cliff, this is Lane with layouttoday.com, and I'm calling for the Podcast Answer Man. I have become a podcasting cautionary tale, and I wanted to tell you and your listeners so my experience may be of value to them. So I decided I wanted to start a podcast, and despite your best advice, went to Blog Talk Radio because it was quick and easy and I didn't need any equipment. But as you know, the quality is not so good, and it was not very long before I got fed up with the phone-type quality and wanted to upgrade my show. But I had several hundred listeners, so I didn't want to leave those listeners hanging. I contacted Blog Talk Radio and asked them if they could do an iTunes RSS feed redirect so I could keep my current RSS feed and keep my listeners but host it myself on my own site, and they told me no, in no uncertain terms. In fact, I got on the phone with someone there finally and said to explain the situation to him, told him about the quality issue, asked him if there was any way he could do this out of the goodness of his heart, and he said, there's nothing in this for us. He said that bypasses them completely, there's no money in it for them, and they would not do it, period. So I'm left hanging. I'm going to have to host my own show, starting over from scratch, losing all those listeners and trying to capture them again somehow. And I just wanted to reemphasize what you tell us again and again, that it's really important that we own our own RSS feed and that we host it ourselves on our own sites and manage our own feeds so we have complete control over it. So I just wanted to share my story and say thank you for the great advice you give. And if for your listeners, if they don't listen to you, they may live to rue the day, just as I have. So anyway, thanks very much. That's just my story, and wanted to share it with your listeners. Bye-bye.
Lane, I wish there was some part of me that could find pleasure in saying I feel good about the fact that I was right, but I don't. I really don't. I feel horrible for all the folks who are in the situation like you are. In fact, the first two calls today, both you, Lynn, and the next call from Clint is something that, to be honest with you, I get at least 4 to 6 emails per month dealing with this topic. And the topic, of course, is where people, instead of going out, creating their own website, taking care of managing their own RSS feed and submitting their own RSS feed to iTunes and other directories, instead of sending their own RSS feed, they allow some service that makes it quick and easy. No equipment required, no technical knowledge required. All you need to do is create a username, an account, and start recording content. And by golly, we will submit your show to via RSS to iTunes. And of course, the majority of the people that do this, they don't even know what RSS feeds are. And they have no idea how they get into iTunes. All they know is that they recorded something, they put it online, or it was, they called in a phone number and they put it online. And boom, they're in iTunes. This is the greatest thing in the world. No, it is the worst thing in the world to have a service out there run your RSS feed. I'll tell you what, if you go to talkshoe.com, all right? Do this sometime. Go to talkshoe.com, and I probably will get some flack over this, but I don't care. I don't use the service as much as I used to. But anyway, go to talkshoe.com and then go in and do in the search box, put in 4776. Now, if you look at that on a keypad, that's GSPN, by the way. So if you want to remember later, look on your keypad, look at GSPN, and you'll see it's 4776. Type that in, and then it'll pull up under search results. It'll say join the community, and you'll see my Podcast Answer Man logo there. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to look at my listing for this particular show, and I want you to tell me where you see an RSS feed on there. You won't see an RSS feed. You won't see an iTunes link. You won't see anything at all related to my podcast on that page for you to subscribe to. And the reason why is because I talked with the CEO of this company, and I said, listen, I want to use your service. I want to promote you heavily, but I do not want you to submit anything that I do on your site, especially regarding this show. I don't want you to put anything that I put on here into iTunes, and I do not want you to offer anybody who finds my content via your site. I don't want you to give anybody the option to subscribe to an RSS feed that you manage. And I basically said, listen, I won't use this service. I won't promote this service. I won't do anything with this service unless you remove that. And I'll tell you what, I was able to get them to completely remove the RSS feeds off of that account. Now, I have a ton of other accounts on there that I didn't go through the process of doing that, but I never promoted those. I never actually used those accounts for anything other than just hosting files. And again, never submitted anything. But I'm very particular. If I'm going to use a third-party service for anything related to podcasting, I will not use them if they offer an RSS feed that's different than the one that I want to promote. Back when I started podcasting full-time as my career, I was approached by Podango. Yes, Podango. They wanted to sign me on as one of their premier network partners, up there with MommyCast and some other bigger players. And what happened was one of the 3 or 4 reasons why I decided not to sign on with our network, one of the reasons was that this thing called feed confusion. And that was everything on my site was going to, all of my shows, even though I was allowed to have my own independent websites, my own independent brands, and everything else, I was able to manage my own RSS feeds. They wanted to create on their website profile pages for each of my shows. And on those profile pages, they wanted to put their RSS feeds on there so that anybody who found me through their method online would be subscribed to my feed through their service. And I'm like, no, I want people subscribed to my feed. It is my show. We'll find a way. There are ways to get your advertisements into my feed. Let's work on that. But I've said no. I'm sorry. I will not sign on. I will not use a third-party service, anything that's outside of myself, when you have an RSS feed different than the one that I personally want to manage. So I don't use them. Now, so what's the problem here? The problem is that if you all of a sudden decide that one of these third-party services aren't for you, such as, let's just say Podango might possibly go out of business and declare bankruptcy and give people a 10-day notice or 2-week notice period of time during the Christmas holiday that they need to get everything off their servers because they're going bankrupt and shutting everything down before the first of the year. That's what they did one Christmas a couple years ago, which I'm glad that I wasn't signed up with them. Which, by the way, was what sparked Michael W. Gohagan to say that podcasting was dead. No, podcasting isn't dead. People just had a stupid business model. That's all there is to it. Which, by the way, is all about CPM and selling advertising, things that I don't agree with. But so the situation, though, is that when you have a service that goes defunct or they jump ship, or the quality isn't quite as good as what you had hoped it would be, it's all telephone quality or whatever the case may be. If you have this third-party server or a service that has their own RSS feed, they manage it for you, and you have several hundred subscribers. Well, if you want to actually say, you know what, I want to kick it up a notch. This is a great start. I wasn't sure if I wanted to invest in equipment. I wasn't sure if I wanted to spend a couple hours or a couple weeks or whatever the case may be to set up and figure out how to get all this stuff going. I didn't want to invest all this stuff until I knew that this was for me. And man, I started calling in these shows, and I've got these listeners, and the feedback that I'm getting, the community that's being built around this show is amazing. I want to actually start doing something better. People said that they'd really love it if the show had a little bit better quality, and I want to give it to them. And so I want to create a site of my own. I want to start recording my own shows locally, and you know what? I find that I don't need, let's say, whatever XYZ third-party service this is anymore. And to think that all of a sudden, your couple hundred subscribers are all subscribed to an RSS feed via iTunes or whatever else that is being managed by that third-party company, and then all of a sudden, can you imagine that the only way to get that changed, which, by the way, there is a way. Any company out there, I don't care. I won't even say the names of the companies. You know who she called in about. But it doesn't matter what the name of the company is. If they own your RSS feed and they have submitted to iTunes, they can go in and manually put some code, an iTunes redirect code. It's just one line of tag. It says, hey, iTunes redirect. Open tag, and then here's the new RSS feed that I want you to forward to, end tag, boom. That's all they have to do. And then the next time people go and update their feed to see if you have any new episodes, it says, hey, instead of looking at this feed from now on, go over and check out this feed. And it completely, immediately, automatically redirects them to the new feed that they put in there for you. Now, I want to go ahead and play the second feedback because it so closely ties in to what I'm sharing here. And then I'm going to talk to specifically to Lane and probably to Clint as well about how you can keep those subscribers, or at least most of them. Clint, take it away with your question.
Hi, this is Clint Fisher calling, and I'm one of your subscribers to your podcast, Answer Man, and I'm actually... And I want to know, I thought I remembered an episode, but I can't seem to find it in the search. I'm trying to find a way, I have a podcast that I've uploaded everything on Podbean, and I want to back that podcast up and everything on their server so that I can move it either to my own server or maybe WordPress or Blogspot. So I wanted to find out if you had like 3 minutes to give me any suggestions, or if you had a podcast on that exact topic, I can just listen to that. Thank you.
All right, Clint, thank you for your call. And by the way, this came in on my voicemail feedback hotline for the Podcast Answerman Consulting business. And Clint, unfortunately, I didn't have 3 minutes to give you a call, but since you said you were a listener of Podcast Answerman, I thought I would include it here, knowing that I was going to talk about this topic. So hopefully you're listening. And for you, I went ahead and edited out the phone number that you had left. But anyway, here's the situation. Same deal here. Using a third-party service, he allowed that third-party service to set the account send the RSS feed over to iTunes. And Clint, this is probably going to be easier for you than it was Lane, although it may not be. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the exact same thing I shared with Lane. Go to your third-party service. Again, I'm not going to say their names because I don't think that I need to say anything about those. But here's the situation. Go to your third-party service after you have already backed up all of your files, uploaded them to your own media server, and then create your own website, create your own RSS feed. My personal desire is to use FeedBurner, although some people argue and say, well, if you're using FeedBurner, you're really not managing. I mean, you're using a third-party service to do that. Yes, I am. I have a lot more faith in FeedBurner than I do in anybody else out there as far as a third-party service. I trust Google with way more than I probably should, but I've been with FeedBurner since the very beginning. I was glad when Google bought them, and they do have a My Brand feature and functionality. I have never employed the My Brand, and the only reason I've never employed the My Brand is simply because I had already had 5 or 6 episodes or 5 or 6 podcasts out there before My Brand came about. I completely trust them. And of course, one day, who knows, episode 492, I'll probably say, uh-oh, everybody warned me. I don't know. I personally, yeah, and Bob Jordan is saying in the chat room, you can also use a C name and use your own domain with FeedBurner in it. And it's basically, that's exactly what it's called. It's called the My Brand service. So, but I use FeedBurner. And what I would recommend that you do is you set up your own site, get your own RSS feed, take that RSS feed, send it through FeedBurner, and then that FeedBurner feed becomes your feed. And that's the one you want iTunes subscribers to subscribe to. Now, the thing is don't go and send that right off into iTunes. Don't submit that new feed into iTunes right away. And the reason why is because you'll have a second listing for your show. Instead, what you want to do is you want to take that new, feeds.feedburner.com/whatever you chose as your RSS feed, or if you're using the My Brand feed, whatever your feed is, with that the FeedBurner feed is. The thing is once you have that set up, all right, what you would do then is you would actually take that feed and you would send a note over to the support department of your third-party service provider. And what you would do is say, listen, I really appreciate your service. I have, your service really helped me get things off the ground and showed me that podcasting is something that I am very much interested in. I've decided to go a more professional route personally as I'm developing a brand online, and I've decided to actually create my own site and manage my own RSS feed. I understand that you can actually put an iTunes redirect piece of code into the RSS feed that you manage for me and actually put my new feed in there. This is my new RSS feed. Will you please do that for me? And now, Clint, the third-party service that you are using, I can tell you right now from my experience I would say somewhere about 2 out of every 3 times that you will ask them, they will do it. And I think it's about 7 out of every 10 people who have told me that they asked were told that it's not possible. It is possible. There's only about a 20 to 30% chance that you're actually going to get them to do it. There's somebody that will do it for you. So again, I'm not saying the name of that person, but third-party providers can do this. It is possible. And I want to tell you that Lane's third-party provider, Basically, same deal. I know people who have had that third-party provider do that in the past. Yes, it can be done by them. It has been done by them. And it sounds to me, from what Lane is saying, is that if you get somebody who's honest, they'll tell you why they won't do it, and it could potentially be because there's nothing in it for them. So now, for Clint and for Lane, if you've done everything you feel like you can do with these companies, and again, I would approach them as civilly as possible, beg them if necessary, and I know that Lane did. Beg them, plead with them, offer to buy them lunch, send them a Chipotle gift certificate for, $50, whatever. See what you can do to get them to do the iTunes redirect. I mean, really, literally, try everything possible. There's a good chance that you might get it to happen. If not, all is not completely lost. And in fact, this is what I would recommend doing. So if let's just say I were Lane, and I had this podcast I started up, didn't know if I was really going to be involved in podcasting. I have several hundred listeners to my podcast. And now I've decided this is not the quality for me. This is not the service for me. I want to do my own thing. I'm going to invest in some equipment, and I'm going to build a brand around this. Wow, am I inspired by this? And I am so excited to have these several hundred subscribers to my show, and I don't want to lose them. But now my third-party provider that I chose to go with, they're holding my RSS feed and my subscribers hostage. And I use that language harshly for a reason. All right. Now, the thing is they're holding my subscribers hostage. Well, here's the situation. My assumption is that your RSS feed is still valid, and if you continue to stay on their service, which is what they're desiring you to do, well, guess what? You can continue to speak to your audience. And so here's what you do. You spend 1, 2, 3, 4 more episodes on their service. And in every single episode, you say at the beginning of the show, in the middle of the show, and at the end of the show that effective April 1st, 2011, we are moving to our own website. This feed will no longer be updated. This feed will be suggested for removal, and you will no longer get any updates after the final episode in March. And so you've got a couple more weeks. You do that. You say it in the beginning of the show, the middle of the show, and the end of the show. And then on April 1st, 2011, you record one last show. And that one last show is just a 5 or 10 minute show explaining, civilly, don't bash the service, but just explain to them, say, you know what, I started using this service because, I wasn't sure. This is why I chose to use it. You know what, I've decided that I'm going to get serious about this. I'm doing my own thing. Unfortunately, I was trying to get the thing switched over to where you could automatically, where things would automatically switch you over to the new feed that I've created. I wasn't able to get that to happen. So this episode will forever remain in this podcast feed as the final episode. I am continuing to record podcast episodes week after week. In fact, I'm more serious about this. In fact, you're going to get higher quality on the other feed. Please do me a favor. Understand this is the final episode here. Please go and check out my new site over at xyz.com and make sure to click the subscribe via iTunes button over there. And just let that be your final episode. And you know what? Guess what? And here's the deal. Out of your several hundred listeners, I would say that probably 70 or 80% of them will likely follow you. The ones who don't, honestly, don't care a whole lot about your brand anyway. So the ones who are the most important people who are following you and connected to you and are interested in what you have to share, if you do that, do a couple more episodes on this third-party service, those people will listen to you, they will go over to your new feed, and they will subscribe. So I hope that that's a little bit of reassurance for you. And I'll tell you what, then I actually have a 25-minute recording here, which is going to now explain to you, my friends, why I have unsubscribed to every single episode in iTunes, as far as unsubscribed to every single podcast in iTunes. Sorry, I'm a little distracted by some talking that's going on outside this door. So let me click this here, and here's this interview that I did. All right, everybody. I am on the Skype connection here with Russell from, is it Adelaide, Australia?
Yep, that's the one.
All right. And he is also with a company called Shifty Jelly. Tell us a little bit about Shifty Jelly and what you guys do over there, Russell.
Yeah, so Shifty Jelly started about 2 years ago. So it was me and a friend of mine, Philip. We just basically started on our couches sort of late at night. We were both software developers, and I guess we had a passion for developing software. And that's where it started. And then, what was it, September of last year, we actually went full-time. So we both resigned from our full-time jobs and moved into the office and did it for real. So now we develop software for the iPhone, for Android, a little bit of web stuff as well.
Excellent. Are you guys for hire to create web or iPhone applications and mobile applications for cell devices?
We try to be more of a product company, so we prefer sort of working on our own products and designs and things like that. We were originally doing a lot of client work as well, just to obviously pay the bills and make sure we got fed and all that kind of thing. But we're doing it right now in the fact that we can kind of take on all our own work basically.
Well, congratulations on that, by the way. I'm glad to hear that. And so,
yeah, thanks.
I've heard about you. I think it was on MacStories.com. I saw somebody there do a little bit of an article on Pocket Casts. How did Pocket Casts come about?
Yeah, so it was the end of last year, and I guess we were looking for a new application to make, and we decided to kind of look at all the things that frustrated us. I guess our history is that we've got a highly successful weather application here in Australia. It's called Pocket Weather Australia, and that sort of came about because there was no good weather on the iPhone for Australia, and I guess Pocket Casts kind of came out the same way. We had a look at the things that frustrated us about the iPhone, and we both have a commute to work. Like I drive 40 minutes, I think, Phil's half an hour on the tram, and we sort of listen to podcasts every day, and we realise, what we're doing here is, I've got my iPod and then I jump over to iTunes and I'm trying to sync it over, and, sometimes iTunes is not quite up to date, so I've missed the episode now. I've got to go to the author's website and I've got to stream it directly off there, and it was all quite cumbersome. We thought, why don't we come up with a way to simplify this? So I think this was back in December last year. We sort of started working on it, and we finally came up with something we're happy with. So we tested it for a few weeks. We made tweaks. We sort of listened to it every day in the car. We'd file a list of bugs. When we got in, I found this, and I guess we finally came up with the application that we wanted to use, and that was the main driver behind it.
That's awesome, because I want to tell you, I got your application, and I have I've been tethered to the iTunes for quite some time, ever since my very first iPod that I had purchased. That's how I've been getting my podcasts. And I think iTunes does a really good job as far as if you're wanting to subscribe to things on a desktop. But if you want to have them on, your podcast on the go, you kind of are stuck with, going back and syncing your device. And I just got back from a 11-day trip. I was gone for 11 days, drove for 2 days to Florida, went on a 7-day cruise and came back. And by the time I came back, I had listened to all the content that was synced before I left. And of course, I had no way of getting all of my new content. Well, technically speaking, there was, but no fun and ongoing usable way. So I had to wait till I got back and synced. And of course, there was tons of new stuff, and I'm way behind. Now, of course, there are applications out there. One of which, by the way, I tried. The closest thing that came anywhere near close to what you guys have done is a podcaster, or is a application called Podcaster. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah, I've seen that, and that's the one that Philip used to use before we had our product. I'd never really used it. I was more using my iPod, and then there's a button on the iPod on the iPhone that says "Get More Episodes," and that jumps you over to iTunes, and it was all a bit of a mess. But Phil did show me Podcaster, and I guess that's been around for a while. I think at least a year and a bit. And I actually remember when is Alex or Alexi or someone his name is actually got rejected by Apple. So that was quite a famous story. He made that podcasting app, and they kicked him off the store, and then he was trying to sort of sell it ad hoc, and then there was all this kerfuffle, and that's kind of what got us interested, is when they actually let him back into the store and they released all their policies. They used to just sort of be hidden policies that they reject your application and say this is why, but there was never a document that you could turn to, and I guess Apple released all that, and that's what really motivated us. And I mean, the other thing about Podcaster is it's a very traditional client. You subscribe to your podcast, and then it's almost like email. You say, I've read this one, I've I've downloaded this one, I've done whatever. And what we tried to do was, I guess, tailor it a bit more to how we use it. So I, for example, I wake up in the morning and I want to know, out of all the shows I've subscribed to, what's new. So I go straight to the updates tab. I go, okay, there's 5 new podcasts. I don't want to listen to these 2. I'll just delete those, and then I'll hit download all. I'll go have a shower, play with my kids a bit, have breakfast, and by the time I get in the car, it's all there, ready to go. And I guess we were trying to build more of that kind of thing rather than a traditional podcasting client.
Right, and the way you use it is very much the way that I use it. Going back for just a moment, if you don't mind, you talked about the fact that if you're subscribed to something on your iPod and you can click the Get More Episodes. There are a couple flaws with the way that iTunes does that. Number one, you can't download via 3G. You have to be connected to Wi-Fi if it's over 10 megabytes, I believe. So,
yeah, I think they've now extended that to 20, but it's still too small for the majority of podcasts.
Absolutely, yeah. Majority of mine are all over 20 megabytes, even the ones I'm subscribed to, not just the ones I produce. But so there's a limitation on how much you can do via 3G on the Get More Episodes. And the other thing is it's dependent on whether or not the podcast that you're subscribed to is actually in the iTunes store, which I'm subscribed to several shows that are not in the store. And I also have some private feeds that I don't let out to the world, and people can still subscribe to them via the RSS feed URL. And if they try to get more episodes, it's going to open up the iTunes app, but it's not going to take them to my show. It's going to take them just to the podcast directory, and that's so the major flaws there. That's why I still relied on the just the syncing model. But then Podcaster came out and I liked it, but it still wasn't there for me. It just something about its layout wasn't there. But I'll tell you what, I paid for your application, which by the way, it's really inexpensive. What is it, $1.99?
Yeah, I think in the US and Canada it's $1.99.
Totally affordable. I mean, folks, go and buy it right away. If you don't like it, you spend $1.99. But I'm telling you, I love this thing. So here's what I love about your application, and I want to share this with my audience. I love the fact that I get to see on your media library, you get to see a gallery of the shows. You get to see the show artwork, and you have a little badge that's on the top that shows you how many, I guess, unlistened to episodes that you have.
Yeah, correct.
And so I like that. It helps me to see that. The thing is also if I click on one of the album artworks and it'll take me and it'll show me what I have available. It's kind of like my own personal queue. And I can delete episodes out after I've listened to them. I can leave as many in the queue or as few in the queue as I want. And for example, today I accidentally deleted an episode. I swiped it and deleted it out of my queue. But at any point, I can actually click this little button that says show all available episodes, which goes and grabs a whole live feed of everything that is currently available. And you can just hit a button that says add, and it puts it right back in your queue. Absolutely love that functionality. There are a couple things that I wanted to ask you about, and that is I noticed that when I started doing a search, I noticed that a lot of shows are already in there. In fact, if I type in gspn.tv and I hit search, I see Twilight Saga fan podcast, Grey's Anatomy, Weekly Lost podcast, Social Media Serenity, Doctor Who fan podcast, World According to Megan, Desperate Housewives, Virtual Assistant podcast, Family from the Heart, Private Practice, Heroes, Full-Time Mom, all my free content, all exclusive, Help I Got a Mac, Pursuing a Balanced Life, Almost Daily Devotional, Community Voice, Musically Challenged, Business Tech Weekly, and About the Church. That's every podcast that I have in iTunes. How are you pulling? Are you pulling this stuff from iTunes?
It is. We try to sort of keep that under wraps a bit, but I guess to answer your question, I think we've added about 5,000 podcasts over the previous week. So I guess anyone sort of downloading the application today has the benefit, that it's been out for I think about a month now, and people have been adding their own feeds, and we've been pulling sort of not directly from iTunes, but we do parse the RSS feeds and things that Apple release, and they sort of let you go through those and see what's in iTunes. And I think our library now is about 9,000 podcasts, maybe even more. And that's the thing we're really struggling with at the moment. So we've got a server that actually does all the parsing. So our whole idea was if I subscribe to 25 podcasts, I don't want to sit there for 3 minutes while, my iPhone goes off and checks every single one of these RSS feeds. So we actually have a server that sits in between that. And that's what we've been up late with, the last few nights. So just trying to get that server to scale. When you've got to parse 9,000, 10,000 different podcasts and try and make sure that, within 5 minutes of something being published that the episode's there, that's actually what we're working on at the moment. So we're actually going to deploy quite a big change, I think, probably in a few hours, actually, just to get that all up to scratch. Because at the moment, it's still trying to keep up, but, there's just so many podcasts and so many feeds that it's just struggling at the moment.
Well, that's the next question I have is, so when I go in and let's just say there's an episode or a podcast that you don't have and you click add podcast URL. So what we're doing is we're adding that to your servers then. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. So if you find, we keep track of what podcasts people listen to, not by your name or anything sort of malicious by that, but just so we can do push, we know, okay, this iPhone listens to these 10 podcasts. And so then we know out of our database, which ones people listen to and which ones they don't. So we give a little bit of priority to the ones that people are actually subscribed to. And then we also, anything that gets added by URL, we then go and parse that as well. There's a bit of a job in there as well, because a lot of podcasts will have, 3 different URLs, but they'll actually be back to the same feed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we've been struggling as well, .rss, .this and .whatever, but they're all sort of point back to the same place at the end of the day.
So I have a question for you. I have this thing called the GSPN.TV Plus member feed, and so therefore, I recently made a change to where it really, honestly, and pretty much anybody can get into it. It's only like for a minimum of $1 you can have lifetime access to our Plus membership. It used to be something that was password protected. All the feeds were password protected. Everybody had unique URLs and stuff like that, and I did away with that in January. But I still don't necessarily want to have the all of these RSS feeds for my premium subscriber only content out there. So if for example, I actually went in and added my Plus access all inclusive RSS URL. So does that mean if somebody does a search that there's a good chance that they might actually be able to pull that up and immediately subscribe to it then?
No, so we thought about that quite a bit. Obviously we don't support feeds that are password protected, the ones that you type into your browser and then it pops up saying what's your username and password. But you can type in a feed that has like an authorization code or has your username and password embedded in the actual link. And those don't actually come up in the search. So if you were to put in your premium super duper feed, you still have access to it and our server would still be parsing it. But no one else would just be able to type in, that into their phone and then get that feed as well. So that's something we actually remove from the search, so you don't get that in the search results.
Okay, so what if my feed now is not password protected because it is just a plain feed. I mean, and I'm not hugely worried about this at all, but I have a question just to know. It is just a standard feed. It's just it's a subdirectory of a main site, so it's gspn.tv/something/something/something, but it's just a main, plain, clean RSS feed. So would that get parsed and put into the search?
No, probably not.
Okay.
So a lot of that at the moment, if you've added it manually, and if it's not something we've had before, it's probably not going to appear in the search for now. That's just how it currently works.
Okay. A couple other things I notice. By the way, I love the fact that when I click on it, you guys have this wonderful feature of being able to jump back so many seconds and jump forward so many seconds. And other applications, I believe the Podcaster app has this, but unlike the other ones, I can actually go in and customize how many seconds to go back, how many seconds to jump forward, depending on what I put in the settings. So
so this was a big feature for me. I use this mainly in the car, and that's why those buttons are sort of take up half the screen. So for those that don't know how it works, if you tap anywhere on the left side of the screen while the podcast is playing, it jumps back a predefined amount of time. So I think the defaults are 10 seconds back, 30 seconds forward. And so for me, that was invaluable. I'd be listening to a show that goes for an hour and a half and, they start talking about something I really don't care about. And you'd think, okay, I'm in the car. I don't want to have to try and, find where's the fast forward button or try and scrub. That's quite a dangerous thing to do. So I just sort of, lean my hand over, go tap, 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 tap. And, when that particular conversation's finished, then I can kind of tune back in. Or if there's something I've missed, someone says something and everyone laughs and I think, oh, what do they say? I can just go tap and it'll jump back 10 seconds and, you're right back into it.
Absolutely love it. Like I said, it's a feature I've seen in other places, but yours is unique in that we can program our own time forward and time backward. I love that. The one thing I will say is that the feature for jumping forward and I'm almost sure backwards is not there for video. Is that something that you hope to add in the future?
Yeah, so at the moment we're working on the next version. That's something I already added. I think it was last week. So the trick there was that you tap the middle of the screen to get the video controls to come up, and then we didn't want to make that jump straight away. So the way that works now in the video feed, and this is not released yet, but you tap once to get the controls, and then you can tap backwards and forwards as much as you want. So that will be there in the next version. Also, I guess while we're talking about that, we're also adding quite a few different ways to get to your podcast. So what we find at the moment is that we've kind of heavily focused on letting people download their podcasts, but there are people that prefer to stream them or whatever else. So we're going to be rejigging a little bit so you can build your own playlist. You can also see what episodes do I have in progress, which ones have I downloaded, which ones are unplayed, just to give you a few more options to find, if you have a large collection, just to find what to listen to next, I guess.
Awesome. A personal request to consider, and of course it's your guys' application, but I for some reason I really like to see the full album artwork if I have a desire to see the full album artwork. And I noticed that I'm looking at the album artwork of my own show right now, and the very top has a constant bar on it that shows the title and the episode name, and it's got the button for the 1x, 2x, 1.5, and the show notes thing. Is there any way to in the future possibly get it to where that bar doesn't show up all the time, or that you can clear it out to actually see the full artwork of somebody's show that you're not familiar with, but you want to see what it looks like?
Yeah, it's funny you should ask that. We were just talking about that yesterday. So we have a designer that works for that. So we're two programmers and one part-time designer. So I was talking to him about exactly the same thing. How do we let people dismiss that but still let them know it's there? So what we're thinking about at the moment is maybe if you actually tap on the title, it'll fade out, and there'll be some kind of indication that you just tap there to get it back.
Yeah.
But we're just trying to figure out the best way to implement that. But yeah, definitely in the next version we're going to try and do that, because some people have some quite nice podcast art, and it seems a shame to sort of stick this black banner over the top of it.
And another big question for mine is I look at the show notes and I'm noticing that it truncates the show notes, and I go through a lot of trouble to actually take my entire show notes that are posted online and I put them in the lyrics tag. What's the possibility of pulling the lyrics tag and putting it into the show notes? Have you ever done that on the iPad or iPod versions? Have you ever seen where somebody actually puts the lyrics in and it actually has this?
Is that the one that kind of hovers over the podcast?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So what we're doing at the moment, Phil actually writes all our server parsing stuff, so I'm not that familiar with it, but we have noticed that some shows, for example, keep their show notes on the web. And I guess, like you pointed out, some shows have a lyrics tag. I don't believe we parse those at the moment, but it is quite flexible. Like if we wanted to, we could add that in fairly quickly. And that's something we're looking at doing sort of this week as well, is definitely trying to parse, like for some of the big podcasts, if they have their show notes on a particular website, we'll try and get those as well. And I guess now that you pointed out that lyrics tag, I should probably write that down so that when Philip gets in, that he can actually have a look at that as well.
Sure. And just to clarify, by the way, is the lyrics tag is actually what I'm talking about is not in the lyrics tag in the feed, but the lyrics tag in the MP3 itself. So it'd have to be downloaded.
I see.
So basically, inside the MP3 metadata in the lyrics tag, I actually throw in. I mean, you can actually write an entire ebook if you want. An 85-page ebook in there. And on the iPod, when it's subscribed and you sync over, it reads the MP3 data's lyrics tag.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Yeah, I'll have to have a look in there. I know Apple had quite a lot of stuff in iOS 4.2 for parsing all that metadata. I think with MP3 it's always been open, but with their sort of AAC files, it's kind of like a closed proprietary standard that they don't really publish the specifications for.
Right.
So that's one thing we don't have, for example, at the moment is chapter support. Right. And it hasn't really been possible until iOS 4.2 that Apple's actually enabled you to get that information out of a podcast.
All right. Another one here. I noticed that I subscribe to Command N's video feed, and they don't happen to have an iTunes graphic in their RSS feed, and so I have no graphic there. Again, I don't care when it comes or if it ever comes, but just a request. It'd be cool if we could add our own a graphic from our media library or something like that for somebody that doesn't have one, so it doesn't look so playing for a particular show?
Yeah, we've had a few people ask that actually, and this is where I guess some of the Android users get an advantage because they can actually see all their art on their SD card and they can sort of drop extra files in. So we are thinking about how to do that. I guess in the short term, if there's a show you really love and it doesn't have a graphic or you think it should have, you can basically just email us and we'll add it in. So we have an admin area sort of on our server where we can go in and either override people's graphics or if they don't have one, we can put in one. So
excellent.
We'd be happy to do that for people. There's actually an email button. I don't know how crazy this is, but there's an email button straight in the app. So I guess we like hearing from people, and even if sometimes it means I have to wake up to 30 or 40 emails in the inbox, I'd rather hear from people that want changes or having problems than not. I'd rather them sort of contact us instead of just delete the app and go, oh, that was no good.
Well, I absolutely love it. Matter of fact, I hit the email button. I didn't expect to get a response right away, or and wasn't sure if I was going to get one. But man, you guys responded right away, and we've had some great conversation. And here we are, just a few short days later, having this interview. Two more things, and then I'll let things wrap up here. But I want to let you know I subscribed to the Apple Keynote video. Now, obviously, that's overkill, but it was in the search directory, and it kept timing out. It was about I think it was almost 800 900 megabytes.
Yeah, I think it was about 850 megabytes though.
Yeah, but it finally did come in, but I just want to let you know that sometimes those bigger files will time out even on Wi-Fi. And then the only other thing I want to let you know is there's webbeat.tv. Now I never really did get into this show, but and matter of fact, I completely got rid of all video podcasts, but I love the fact that I can choose to download one whenever I feel like it on your app. I don't have to actually subscribe to it per se. And so I went ahead and brought in some videos here, but webbeat.tv, they have their small, large, and HD feeds. All three of them, video will not play in the application at all.
Okay. Does it play audio or just plays nothing?
If I stream it, it will play audio.
But when might be something I have to have a look into. There are certain cases where, depending on how people have encoded video, it won't actually play on the iPhone. And that's not something we're smart enough at the moment to look at and go, let's play the audio instead. I think it actually tries and then refails if it doesn't work.
Yeah. Well,
what was the first thing you said?
The first
for
thing,
the WebBeat TV.
The first thing for the WebBeat.tv.
Before WebBeat TV.
That was the Apple Keynote was 800 meg
that's
file
right. Yeah.
timeouts.
So what we're trying to do, I'm not sure in the next version or the version after, is actually put in what's called resume support.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of web servers, I don't know if yours does or not, but some of them actually support resuming of a download. So if you get to 30 meg or 100 meg, and for some reason your 3G connection dies or your Wi-Fi connection drops out, then you can actually resume from then on. We don't have that support in the application at the moment because it's a complex thing to implement, but that's something we're looking at. I've definitely been looking into that over the last few weeks to see how we can get that to work, I guess, in a seamless way.
And the only and I told you that was going to be the last thing, but I want to say one more thing is that the playback, I download all of my episodes that I want to listen to. I don't want to stream them, but I noticed that it's really good most of the time. I'd say 9 times out of 10. It does a really great job. If I come back a couple hours later, click on that same episode and hit play, it starts playing from the beginning, but then jumps me right to where I left off 9 times out of 10. But occasionally, like if it's been 2 or 3 days, I can come back and it kind of just kicks me right to the very beginning of the episode again.
Yeah, okay. That's not something I've had, but there's only a certain sort of set of circumstances out of which you can save where you're up to. So the app does try to, when you pause or you play or at certain intervals, it tries to sort of save where you're up to and remember that. But there's a few little gotchas at the moment which we're trying to fix that, if you do this and then you unplug that and then you do this and then you do that, it'll basically either forget where you're up to, or it'll be like a few minutes old and that kind of thing. So they're all things we're trying to address in the next version, basically. The other problem we had is the very first version we released sort of had streaming inside our application, and Apple actually rejected that. So they have all these rules about, how you can do streaming and how much you can download. And so we actually had to move that into their control. So if you stream over 3G, I don't know if you noticed, you get the default sort of Apple player.
Oh, okay.
And the problem we have with that is there's a lot less control we have over that. So things like saving the position and that kind of thing, we still try and do, but it's still a little bit flaky at the moment. So that's something we're trying to fix as well.
What about downloading over 3G? Are you limited on that?
No. So Apple, for some reason, they don't put any limits on that. They put the limit on the streaming, which doesn't really make sense to me, because in theory you should be downloading less, while you're streaming it than if you download the entire podcast. But yeah, I guess that's their call, isn't it?
Well, I'll tell you, Russell, I absolutely love this application. Last week, I told my audience that I would tell them this week why I, after all of these years, for the very first time ever, made the decision to completely and utterly unsubscribe from every single podcast in iTunes. And this is why, because I am now subscribed to all of my podcasts and even more as a result of Pocket Casts, which is available from Shifty Jelly over there in the iTunes store. For those of us here in the States and I guess some other places, $1.99, absolutely worth it. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
No, thanks for your time. It was great.
All right, my friends, there you go. That was the interview that I did with Russell over there with Shifty Jelly. Wow, I tell you, I am still so excited about this application, this podcast's Pocket Casts application that you can get in iTunes. And it sounded, I don't know, did I hear him say something about the Android users? That I wonder if they have a version for that. I didn't seem to ask him. But anyway, I'll tell you what, if you're an iPhone user, I love this thing. I think it is absolutely worth $1.99. And I have actually taken the iPod application or icon out of my bottom dock on my iPhone. I've put it off somewhere else because I don't need it anymore. I have instead replaced it with the Pocket Casts icon. That's how important this application is to me. I absolutely love it. And I want to let you know that, this application's not perfect. There are a few minor bugs, and I have had the application crash on me before, not while I'm listening and not while I'm in the middle of watching, but like sometimes when I'll go to launch a video, sometimes it'll close the program. It's not unlike the glitches that you get with a lot of first versions of a piece of software. But the good news is, and the reason why I wanted to have Russell on the show was simply due to the fact that I wanted to share with you guys and find out for myself before I recommend this thing. Is this just something they threw together and they put it into the store and they're working on other things now and they could care less now that they got what they wanted? Or is this something that they are continuing to develop? And you can clearly hear from that interview that they are continuing to develop this particular application. So I would recommend go get it, check it out. I have no doubt that a lot of you will. And tell us what you think. Or actually tell them what you think and tell them that you heard about it from Podcast Answer Man. I love that they have the little email on there. And somebody said, it'd be great if they had OPML import. That would be nice to see implemented on this thing. And I agree with that. That would be a great thing. In fact, I don't know why I didn't think about that other than the fact that I don't use OPML, but I should. And the thing is, though, is you can send an email to them right from the application and they will respond. I promise. They're good people over there. Anyway, folks, oh my goodness, I told you at the beginning of the show I was going to talk about, Vince had a problem where people on Skype aren't hearing his audio clips. I told you that we were going to talk about video product questions from Chef Tony. I told you that we were going to talk about Adobe Audition versus Sound Booth and metadata for Jim Beagley. All of those guys, listen, do me a favor. Please tune in next week, our 201st episode of Podcast Answer Man. Lord willing that I'm here, I will get to those very first thing. Hey, I do want to let you know PodCamp Nashville is coming up. I think it's Saturday, March 26th. Yes, it is. And man, listen to this. Bill and Judy Graff, myself and my wife Stephanie, Eric Fisher, Rob Williams, Jonathan Nation, David and Paula Foster, Chris Bakke, Carolyn Wright, Dan Miller, Vicky Cipher, Cindy Rushton, Connie Williams, Sheila Tidwell, and Pierce Mars. Do you know what? Those are all GSPN.TV community members that are going to be at PodCamp Nashville. I am so excited. If you are anywhere near the Nashville, Tennessee area on Saturday, March 26th, or if you can drive there, come and participate in PodCamp Nashville. We are going to have a blast. And, I just invite you to come to Nashville. It's going to be an awesome time. Hey, also want to let you know that my podcasting A to Z group study course with 20 different people that I'm teaching how to podcast from scratch, it is going fabulous. It is amazing. I'm having so much fun, and I have made the decision. I am definitely doing another month-long training session during the month of May 2011. And here's the deal. 2 spots already filled. All right? 2 spots 100% filled, and that means there are only 18 spots left. Now, here's the situation. Anybody who signs up before I start marketing this thing big time in April, because I don't have enough time to market it outside of just a random mention here in the show, anybody who signs up for my May class before, what is that, April 1st? Anybody who signs up before April 1st will get the same pricing, $800. Now, I know some of you I told, that's not going to be the same price I'm offering, but anybody who signs up before April 1st will get the $800 price. However, the new price will go into effect once I decide what it's going to be if we don't sell out the 20 spots before April 1st. Anyway, if you're interested, email me, cliff@podcastanswerman.com. Until next time, join the community.